Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. The document that I'm holding right now in my hands is a map by the Pakistan Meteorological Department, and it shows that entire Pakistan is facing the high extreme temperatures. All the provinces, including Punjab, Sindh and Balochistan also. There is a varying degree of the kind of temperature various regions in the entire country are facing. Now, there was also an advisory which was issued by the Pakistan Meteorological Department that said that from 23rd to 27th of May, the temperatures are likely to remain 6 to 8 degrees Celsius above the normal. Also, in another major development, while speaking at a news conference in Islamabad along with the high-ranking officials of NDMA, the coordinator to Prime Minister on climate change, Rumina Khurshid Alam, has informed that 13 districts of Sindh, 9 in Punjab and 4 districts of Balochistan are experiencing severe heat wave. She has also added a rising global temperature across the world is a matter of serious concern. Now, authorities in various regions across the country are issuing advisories in order to inform and make people aware that what sort of precautionary and preventive measures they need to take in order to avoid any sort of emergency or untoward situation. Meanwhile, Punjab government has also announced to shut down all the public and private schools from 25th to 31st of May. Let me also talk about the highest temperatures which have been recorded in the last 24 hours. According to the Pakistan Meteorological Department, Mohenjo-daro and Dadu were the two cities, the areas where the temperature reached as high as 50 degrees Celsius in the last 24 hours. Also, as I've already mentioned, the authorities are urging the people to stay indoors, keep themselves hydrated and avoid unnecessary travel. It has also been reported in sections of media that people are coming to the hospitals in various parts of the country who have been facing heat-related problems also. When we talk about these spells of heat waves, particularly this is the second spell of heat wave in a single month Pakistan is facing right now. There are multiple findings and studies that suggest that human-caused climate change has increased the frequency and intensity of heat waves. Now, regarding this particular situation, we'll try to understand what heat waves are. The current spell of heat waves in Pakistan are these the manifestation of the climate-induced erratic events happening worldwide also. Since we know that Pakistan remains to be one of the most vulnerable countries as far as the effects of climate change are concerned. Also, heat stroke, what does that actually mean? What are those measures which can be taken in order to avoid the heat stroke? How does it actually work? And once exposed to heat, what needs to be done immediately? We'll be also taking the expert view regarding that. Also, heat waves, how heat waves affect communities, in what terms? Also, the causes of heat waves, how can the adverse impacts of heat waves could be addressed? All these important aspects are for discussion in today's show. For that, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Munir Ahmad. He is climate change expert. Mr. Ahmad, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar. He is Chief Executive Officer at Global Health Strategists and Implementers. Dr. Asghar, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Talha Tufail. Bhatti is an environmental scholar. He is heading Strengthening Regional Climate Resilience Program at the Institute of Regional Studies in Islamabad. Mr. Bhatti, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Munir Ahmad, the current spell of heat waves Pakistan is facing right now, is it a manifestation of climate change?
Of course, yes. Whatever we are facing these days, the extreme weathers, before the heat wave, we have been witnessing the rain that destroyed a lot of infrastructure and lives also. And the longer spell and heavy rains, and after now, and it is also because of the carbon emissions that we have emitted. We means like the
Not Pakistan, the industrial developed world.
Industrial world basically, and those developed countries, they have contributed, and still they are contributing much more greenhouse gas emissions to that is causing the extreme situations, and still they are not willing to reduce their carbon emissions. That's the one thing. The other phenomena that is that has been contributing to it, that is the natural the loss of green cover and natural resources basically, and we have been like very unwise towards the surroundings around us, and the infrastructures that we developed, the kind of industry that we developed, and we could not provide our communities the climate resilient or energy efficient housing. So these are a couple of elements that has contributed to the situation. The most alarming situation that we are going through, but still the world that has contributed to the situation is not cutting down their emissions, and they are not doing or like paying the bill of the losses that the developed countries are facing, especially Pakistan. Pakistan has been struggling for the funds from the developed world, despite their commitments, and they did not fulfill, and we lost like $30 billion, of infrastructure and other things, but the promises were not met. And the same is the case, the promises they made at the Paris, and repeatedly they continued to make promises, but they remain unfulfilled.
Right, very important, very pertinent point that you've just raised. I'll come back to you to understand the responsibility of the developed world in particular when it comes to cutting the carbon emissions down and moving towards reducing those carbon emissions and reducing ultimately the global warming, which is actually leading into these kind of severe heat waves. Let me bring in Dr. Asghar also. Dr. Asghar, when we specifically talk about, I will start with you from the very basics. From last many days, we've been hearing through different sections of media, this has actually become the talk of the town now, heat stroke. There was another term that we used to hear about, there was sunstroke. How both are differentiated, how heat stroke basically affects the human body? What are the basics as far as the scientific studies involved?
So thank you for inviting me for this your program. Extreme weathers are bad for human body, both extreme cold or extreme heat. And that's what's happening right now, that we are going through an extreme heat phase. Our bodies are not tuned to, function fully either the extreme temperatures. And what is happening in, before we reach out to sunstroke or heat stroke, there are many other stages which basically what we call the heat exhaustion, and then people start feeling tiredness, they start feeling nausea, they start feeling vomiting, they start feeling weaknesses. These are basically the signs which are telling you that you need to leave the sun, come to a cooler place, and make sure you have enough water and saline water just to fulfill this. Once you have a fully developed sunstroke or heat stroke, I don't think there is a huge difference in this. These are just different terms which are being used. Okay. Basically, your body, it's an emergency situation for your body. Okay. And in extreme cases, your cardiovascular system, including heart attacks, are very common. Even extreme cases, your kidneys stop functioning. So these are very extreme cases. Okay. Normally, before that, if you are living in a hot country like Pakistan, our parents have told us what are the signs, when to come back to the cold side or the shaded sides in the house. But having said this, every year lot of people die because of heat stroke or sunstrokes, because simple precautions are not taken.
Okay, so the point which makes me curious is sunstroke and heat stroke. Heat stroke is the exposure to the heat, regardless of whether you have a direct exposure to the sun. Am I correct on that?
True.
And sunstroke is getting exposed directly under the sunlight. So, for example, today, let me bring on in my own experience. I just got up, I just went out, hardly not more than 10 meters to the corner shop in my street, very nearby. So it was 9:30 in the morning. But as soon as I returned back, I was covering myself with the wet towel at that particular time also. But when I came back, I started feeling stressed at that particular time. That exposure was not more than 5 to 6 minutes, I guess, roughly. So at what time and what time frame of exposure after which a person can start feeling that the heat has affected him or her?
So it's actually very really difficult to differentiate when the sunstroke will end and the heat stroke will start, or vice versa,
Right.
because they are pretty much, again, we are talking about in our own country, the situation called exclusively heat stroke happens in someone who is working in a furnace in a hot summer days, and he gets that heat. But overall, these are pretty much interchangeable terms. You are very correct, and that happened with me also. Even though I was walking under trees, and it was actually 8 a.m., but the temperature at the 8 a.m. a few days back was reaching out to 30 plus degrees Celsius, and I normally walks. And I think one thing which we need to remember when we are thinking about how much exposure will is
Will
bad
actually
for you.
lead to
Yeah.
a heat stroke.
Yeah, so it depends on your age, your physical fitness also.
Okay.
If you are younger age, you can
Withstand the onslaught of
heats
heat.
much better than older age because your reserves are very little. So it depends on our age, and it's very difficult to say like 5 minute or 10 minute. But in summer days, make sure you protect your head and your neck, and wear loose clothing. These type of clothes when we wear outside are not good. Even the track suits are not good. You need to be wearing airy clothes. The one we had, our traditional, shalwar kameez or the dhoti, the traditional. They are very airy clothes. And in summer days, and that was the reason people were wearing turbans on the head, covering head, and because they were working whole day in the field.
Right.
So the type of clothes you wear also make a difference.
Right, Mr. Bhatti. Now, there are multiple findings when we talk about climate change, the human influence on the environment, and the kind of global warming that we've been getting, the heat which has been continuously added to the atmosphere, leading to the global warming now in the form of severe heat waves. One of those studies, the assessment report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, talks about, let me quote one of the very important excerpts from: human-caused climate change has increased the frequency and intensity of heat waves since the 1950s, and additional warming will further increase their frequency and intensity.
Yeah.
What does future hold for the humanity?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. As you rightfully mentioned, I mean, IPCC, this report is a holy grail for climate science. And if they are telling you that intensity and frequency is increased, it is increased. I mean, if we talk about the literature, scientific literature, there is a study conducted by Dr. Fahad in Pakistan, and the impact was actually increased around 6 to 8%. Heat wave intensity is increased and the frequency is increased. Mostly in the global world, they talk about that this climate change is the Asian problem, because currently, according to WMO, World Meteorological Organization, we are at 1.87 degrees centigrade. The threshold limit which is set by the Paris Agreement is around 1.5. So we are already in an overshoot scenario. In overshoot, when we cross that threshold 1.5 limit, it's a scientific limit, not a political one. So when we cross it, there is multiple factors that it's more like a trickle down effect.
It is for across the board when we talk about the entire Asian region.
Yeah,
or does
it's the
vary
entire region really.
with the change of going towards the north or towards the south?
I
Does
think
does that vary with that also?
WMO recently, in the last month, World Meteorological Organization actually published a report on Asia.
Right.
And they categorically stated it that this region, from Asia, whole region, is at 1.87 degrees centigrade. Pakistan is closer to equator. So we are more vulnerable to the temperatures, and our oceans or seas are more vulnerable, because in the last 11 months, oceans are breaking heat records every day. It's not like every year, it's every day, and it is continuous. Because of that, the frequency is increased, the temperature threshold is already crossed. So by saying that we are 1.87, it means that the temperature we are having here is, you said 5 to 8, I can say this, it's like 5 to 12 degrees centigrade temperature that is actually increased in the heat wave. In 2022, we experienced 8 heat waves. In 2023, this report is yet to come. But I'm dead sure that the number is in double digits.
In 2022, we experienced
8 heat waves.
8 heat waves in Pakistan?
In Pakistan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the maximum temperature during those heat waves went to which extent?
12 degrees. 12 degrees to the normal. Like if Islamabad, according to a UN Habitat study, Islamabad is actually already permanently increased the 3 centigrade temperature averagely. Like if that average temperature is 25, now it's 28 on average. So when we add this temperature with the heat wave, it's like 3 degrees and plus 8 degrees. So it's like 12 degrees margin that we are facing. So because of that, I think the intensification of the event was also increased. And once we are passing through these heat waves, and when the monsoon spell will come, so the land is almost dried. It's more like the evapotranspiration process in which the soil loses its moisture, and when the rain pours down, it causes flash floods. So the flooding is like it's likely to become in the coming months if we have rain, uncontrolled rain or extreme rains. So by mentioning this, mentioning AR6, they are actually telling us that be prepared for the future. What is coming for you, just be prepared for that.
How to be prepared for the future, Mr. Munir Ahmad?
There are a couple of things. First, we have to act wisely, and everyone has to act wisely. First thing that we have to do, that is like we have to take measures to protect our people, and every individual counts, and every single effort to protect themselves, or their families, and we need to improve our surroundings. That I believe.
Okay, so
at least we can have reduce the impact of.
Reduce the impact. I see your part of holding you over here for just a second. You talked about we need to protect our people, right? Protecting our people, again, it makes me curious when it comes to the adverse impacts of climate change, particularly when we talk about, let's specifically talk about heat wave. Do heat waves affect all the communities equally?
Certainly not, because the rich has the kind of infrastructure. They have like air conditioning rooms, and even their cars are much equipped with the ACs, and they have like much more resilient infrastructure basically. Right. But the poor, that is maybe like more than 80% of the total population, and they don't have such kind of protection mechanisms. And actually,
so
at this time,
low income groups have
low income groups or the middle income groups, they are the more vulnerable groups. And one thing, perhaps now we have to adapt the and we have to change our routine. Like if you get up and go outside even at 7 a.m. And you feel it. So it means like during the daytime you have to take precautionary measures and you stay at home. Perhaps what we have been doing in the COVID was working online, and very efficiently we were working online. Perhaps we have to adapt this mechanism, or like we have to change our routine as well. This is what I believe. This is the one thing. Secondly, we need to improve our habitats, the human habitats, the urban towns and the cities. We are not still aware of or like implementing the codes of infrastructure development. Our infrastructures are not very
So,
resilient. to energy
do we
upheaval.
understand the urbanization is intrinsically wrong, or the urbanization not done the right way is something that actually can lead to some dire consequences?
Urbanization is not done in the right way, if I say.
Okay.
We have several guidelines, but that is not implemented. Still, if you go to whatever the houses are built or the buildings are, still we are using, the same old materials and in the same old patterns. Now we have to change the pattern of construction as well, and we have to, and perhaps we also need to change the working hours as well. Perhaps we need to shift our working hours from afternoon to maybe late
Perhaps you are
evenings.
suggesting bringing in the DST,
Maybe.
the daylight saving time, which is
But
once was
that is
experienced
very
here.
important. But there are two ways, because like if the poor will go outside at this moment, of course, and they have to take extra precautionary measures. And how many will take care of, and secondly, if they really know that what kind of measures they have to take. So there are multiple implications of the heat waves, and we have to think 360 degree at the moment, and we need to take multiple measures
Right.
to save our people.
Mr. Ahmed, you have already suggested about, bringing a little bit of transformation when it comes to our working habits, right? Working online, as you brought the example from the times of COVID-19. When there are heat waves, do they also lead to considerable loss when we talk about the working hours? And how much effect that puts on the economy overall?
That is true. That is true. Like it is not only affect the working hours, it is also affect the efficiency of the people. Like if you are feeling stressed and you are totally disturbed, and as Dr. Saab mentioned, if you have the impact of it on your mental and your physical health, so will you be able to perform that? But unfortunately, most of the population of our country has to go out to work, and that
The
is
daily wages?
the daily
do have to
wages,
go-
the farmers, the shopkeepers, the laborers. 70-80% is the labor force that in Pakistan. Pakistan is like a very diverse landscape of labor force. So they have to go out. If they will not go out, but one thing I believe, and that I practice as well, that is like when I get up early in the morning, maybe 4 o'clock. These days I start my day right from 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. That is the time. And after saying my prayer, I go to acclimatize myself, and that helps me. And by 7 and 8 p.m. or 9 a.m., 7, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., I have done most of my work. And then I go to like take a bit rest, or like if I have some meetings, I try to schedule early morning or after 4 p.m. I can afford it. And most of the people, those who are the white collar, into white collar jobs, they may afford it. But what about the laborers? So we have to take perhaps, if not in the evenings, we can start our day with the sunlight. And these days, sun rises about 5 a.m. Perhaps that is the best time. And we can take a break around 9 or 10 or 11 a.m. And the second half can be done like in the afternoon. And now the sun sets about 7:30. So again, we will having the same number of working hours a day, but in the split manner.
Do you think people are going to come back in the second half of the day with the same energy, enthusiasm once they have turned off the work mode?
Yes, you are right. But I believe most of the time our efficient working hours are like 3, 4 or 5. We are not like 9
the
hours,
maximum output-
all the 9 hours are
And we
not
perceive
very
that maximum
efficient.
output could be taken in,
In
the first
the
hour
4 or
of it.
5 hours.
Right. Dr. Asghar, when we talk about the precautionary measures in during the heat waves, there are multiple advisories by multiple departments here in Pakistan. As a public health practitioner, what do you suggest?
So before going there, I just want to put my few cents
Please go
on
ahead.
this. I think Pakistan has a very low carbon footprint on the global, but that does not mean we can't do anything to safeguard our populations. And that could be done with rethinking about our housing, how their houses are built. And we learned, not we just only, the global public health experts learned that the housings in which we are living right now are basically very make us susceptible for other pandemics, especially the airborne pandemics. And the reason is there is pretty much no ventilation in the modern buildings because we got the air conditioning. Think about 40 years ago. You are too young to think about it, but at least those of us who were here, air conditioning was not that common. So the houses were built in a way to have a cross air ventilations. So it has high roofs, making sure there is a good air ventilation, and that helped not only in the weather, in the hot weather or extreme weathers, but also in improving your survivability in case of a pandemic. And now, at least in the West, they have started working on it, because the whole infrastructure has to change. That's one thing. Second is our clothing and our diet. That has to be changed also. Because again, in hot summer days, I remember when even I was in a medical college, I used to tell my mother, no curries today, just make some chutneys, and we will have chutneys and the lassi as a lunch. But now, in hot summer days, people are having very spicy, hot food, and that's common. That also actually create those situations which are unhealthy for our body. And the third thing is the timing which you have mentioned. The schools used to open at 7 a.m. And siesta, which he has also mentioned, is a nap time, is still practiced in many Mediterranean countries, including Italy and Spain. And I was living in Africa, in Mozambique. That was a routine there also. So we used to start our office at 7 a.m. and by 1 or 1:30 or 2, we were done with it. So the timing changes could be. So for last 30, 40 years, because we had access to these modern gadgets, our lifestyle became dependent on machines or artificial environment. We need to go back to the nature. Now coming back to
one important point. I'll come back to that particular question that I've already asked you. Talking about housing in particular, what I remember is I have also seen those old houses, as you have mentioned. Now the new houses have least ventilation that make the people more susceptible to other airborne pandemics also. As far as I remember is there used to be a huge compound or a veranda somewhere in the middle of the house around which there used to be rooms, and which actually served a good place to get a good intake of the air, right?
Yeah.
So cross ventilation was pretty good in those houses, and those houses were made of a mixed material or bricks with they were brought into togetherness with mud rather than concrete, right? So wasn't that model of the housing more sustainable and more environment friendly? And can it also, if yes, can it also withstand the onslaught of other environmental factors?
Definitely, but you don't need to have mud, in today's world to using it. You can still use bricks,
Concrete.
but it's depends on the design of the house. Because when I moved from abroad to Islamabad, I was shocked that I was looking for a house to rent, and these are one canal houses in Islamabad. And I was shocked to see that most of them had no lawns. Absolutely not. These are one canal houses. They had one basement, full basement, one this and one top, no ventilation and no small piece of grass. Compared to from where I came or lived, it was in Lahore, where even a 5 marla house had a small piece of green land. And the houses which used to be in mohallas, they were like 3 marlas or 4 marlas, very small houses. But they had, as you said, a small veranda, air ventilation system where the heat air can move upside and the cool air come from the downward. So they were thinking about ventilation because they knew they didn't have air conditioning. But once we got air conditioning, I still remember the first house I saw with the low roofs and very small rooms, and they were thinking we have the air condition. I still remember seeing that house for the first time. The thing is, these things are simple. At least in the new housing, we could start it. In the new housing schemes, when I was growing up, there were orchards all around us. You talk about which city, there were mango orchards, there were guava orchards. These were urban orchards which used to be here, not anymore. And these need to bring back. It takes 2 or 3 years to bring those orchards back and have some change.
Right. The precautionary measures.
Yes. So precautionary measure is, again, start with the clothing. You need to have an airy clothes. You should not wear tight clothes. And this is the recommendation, not coming from a Pakistani public health expert. It's the global public health expert advices in the heat weather. You should have a hat or a cap, just not only which should be it should be a brim one, which should care your head but also your neck.
And
it's
shoulders
very
also?
important. And shoulders you are wearing clothes anyway. Try to finish your work when there is still less heat. Try to stay at home or in a shaded area in those time periods.
By what time? Like it is generally advised not to be out in the exposure of the heat or the sun in the afternoon. So by what time this particular that intensity of heat starts dissipating naturally? After 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m.?
Unfortunately, in this heat wave, because I switch my walk in the evening time, but even at the sunset time, the temperature what we are getting is around 38 Celsius, which is quite hot. And at that time, if you go out, your road, which is made of charcoal, also is giving you heat. So you are not only getting heat from outside, but from your feet also it's hot. So I think the best time to do walks, especially because a lot of people do is before the sunrise. So leave at 4 a.m. and by the 5 a.m. or late at the night. But remember, drink a lot of water.
And keep yourself hydrated.
Hydrated with salt.
Right.
It should not be this. And
what about the heart patients? Should they be drinking water with salt added?
No,
also?
they have to consult their doctor to make sure how. But remember, if they are sweating, the salt is being, they're losing salt. So it needs to go back into their body, because you need to make sure your kidneys are functioning. You are not hypovolemia, your heart is not in stress.
How much quantity of water per day in this sort of a spell is recommended usually?
It's body to body and age to age. When I was young, I used to drink like 4.5 liter. That was my, if I'm going out, I have those 3 bottles.
Right.
But I think the 8 to 12 glasses normally they recommend if the person is working in heat. But they have to see if their kidney is also functioning well.
Right. Mr. Ahmad, I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Talha into the discussion also. Talha, how much deforestation or losing the green cover that is adding to these spells of heat waves?
Humongous.
Locally, let's keep aside that global impact of global warming on Pakistan. How much deforestation or losing the thick cover or going towards more urbanization, expanding the cities horizontally is adding to this particular problem?
Yeah, I mean, humongously. Just want to say this because I just want to add something which my peers said already, that I think we need to get modernized rather than westernized. Our structures which we see today around us are mostly concrete, which is not from us. Our structures were way more different than that. We can see that, as Dr. mentioned, that the structures of our homes were different. But now whatever we see is like concrete, confirmed concrete, and they have made roads on that and everything. But there's another thing.
And there are certain urban areas that we see and we just get that idea perhaps it is a concrete jungle.
Yeah, it's a concrete jungle.
So that's a new terminology that has come forth also with these type of changes happening.
Not only this, these concrete jungle are actually getting heat into the system at the night too. We call it urban heat effect, in which the temperatures are not get lowered to 30 or lower than 30. in the night too. Like then in the night we have around 30 plus temperatures multiple times in the year 2022, because I have read the report, I'm quoting that year particularly.
Well, but my personal experience has been a little different. In the last couple of days, the daytime temperatures have been quite high. When I go back to my place from the office, I don't have to use the air conditioner. It is, I think, with most of the people, because what I feel is there is a considerable drop in temperature in the night time.
Yeah, there is considerable drop.
So doesn't that actually lead to the adjustment of the human body with such a quick variation of the temperature during 24 hours?
I do agree with that. That at night the temperatures are actually dropped to the point where we can actually bear them. But the point I'm telling you that these concrete jungles are actually making sure that the heat is actually not dropped below than 30 in the night too. But you asked me that the forest cover, well, I can give you a figure that Pakistan, when was liberated back in 1947, we have around 240,000 kilometers of jungle in Pakistan, or geographical cover. But currently we reduced it to like around 40,000 or 50,000 square kilometer. That roughly this is the area. Our footprint, or the biodiversity footprint, is actually decreased. The minimum the forest cover a country needs to sustain its climate is around 26%. We have less than 4%. So the decrease of this tree cover is humongous, and it is continuous, and it is already continuous in the future run. Because if you see Islamabad, if you see the census of population, this city is actually grown humongously as compared to any province of the Pakistan. We can see the population near to Rawat now, or to further on to offstreaks of that, if the city, and everything everywhere we saw is actually covered with the concrete now. So I think it's very necessary to go back to your roots, to get modernized but not westernized in itself. You need to build your houses in a manner where the ventilation is very frequent. You need to avoid these things. There is a very good restaurant in Des Perdes. It's a village near F6. And if you go over there in Des Perdes, there is mandir, there is a masjid, and there is a gurdwara together on one place. If you look at the walls of those structures, they are made of dal. The walls are made of dal, and that dal is actually get more solid when there is heat on the top, but it is very cold in the inside of it. So the structures we see into our childhood, that there are wooden sticks which are slapped on the top of the roof. So that roof is actually protect us from the excessive heat, and it reflects back.
How effective can water bodies be?
Well, during the heat wave, the evapotranspiration, as I mentioned, is increased. So there are high chances that the water bodies decrease themselves. Like we have 2 dams in Islamabad, and the water table is going down rapidly in their consumption. Because of the heat wave, the consumption of water is also increased. So because of that, we have a limited resource with the ever increasing population. So there is a element of conflict in that too. So what we need to do is to plan ourselves in a manner where we can survive and sustain in that particular dimension. As rightfully mentioned by my peers, that there are different things that you can use. You can change your clothes, you can change your eating habits, you can add more dietary things that are light to your stomach, that are very important. But apart from that, I think we need to go back to those conditions that are from where we are familiar to each other, those conditions that nature holds.
What sort of projections, Talha, can you draw right now when we talk about the impact of these heat waves on the glaciers that Pakistan has? What future Pakistan's glaciers hold if such type of heat waves are persistent in future as well?
I mean, if you ask me, that the conditions are very critical, and I can say that the planning we are having right now is not enough. If we look at our NDCs, people, as my peers mentioned, that we are not big emitters, but we are not least emitters. We are the 18th largest emitter of the world. And as our NDCs are submitted into the UNFCCC, they are actually mentioning to increase it to 800 metric tons. Currently, we are at 400, around 400. So when we increase the emissions around 800, then we are going to become one of the major emitters in the world. And by doing that, we are facing those responsibilities which are going to be upon us, like to fund those, to fund into funding bodies, to look into those avenues where you are practically can solve the problem. If you look at the future regarding heat waves or the extreme weather events, I think we are very least prepared. We are not prepared in the manner where we can actually help the vulnerable communities, as you mentioned. The labor community, the lower community of our society is actually more vulnerable to these kind of extreme weather events. Well, I mean, I met with the people every day in the office. You can see your guards out there. Their eyes are red. They are yellowish in their eyes. So that is actually happened because of the water loss. What we need to do is to maintain those. We need to specially take care of them.
There are camps being established
Yeah.
all across the country, and the authorities are taking care of that particular aspect also. Mr. Ahmad, now you already wanted to make a point regarding housing.
Yes, I wanted to make 2 points. One regarding that two things that can reduce the impact. That is, we need to promote green neighborhood, the very first thing. And secondly, every house can have its rooftop gardens or vertical gardens, you know, and this concept is not new. It has been implemented in many countries. These are the two things that can improve the local conditions and reduce the impact. And
that is exactly the point that I was coming to.
Yeah.
Having plants at your home.
Yeah,
How
that
big
is-
an impact can it be?
I have more than 50 plants in my backyard.
But not
But,
all of the houses
it-
or
it- it
residences
ha-
are
it
going
ha-
to have
it
the
ha-
equal number of.
It has reduced tremendously the temperature of my house. I don't use air conditioners.
How much
So-
air conditioning has to do with increasing the heat?
Of course, like it emits, like most of the appliances, they emit CFCs. But now the new gadgets, they have much less emissions. But still, they produce heat around your houses. The second thing that I wanted to make before going further, that I have seen maybe like 10 years back to very recent, even in Thailand, they start their day with the rise of the sun, and same is the case with China. And that has increased their working hours. And there is also, like, they take a nap somewhere in the middle of the day, and the same is practiced even in their schools and offices, and they have like a power nap, and then they start working, and they complete their working hours.
Right. Unfortunately, we are short of time. I'll have to go towards the ending. Very quickly, Dr. Asghar, when we are so used to using the air conditioning. We're using air conditions in our cars, in our houses, in our offices also. So once in that particular environment with low temperature, you go out all of a sudden. How vulnerable a human body becomes in that sort of a scenario.
So,
And how to avoid that?
Yes. So, one, you must have noticed that if you come out of a very cold room and go to the hot weather, you start sneezing or something like. So, body is trying to compensate for this. That's not good for the body. Your body has to slowly go from heat to cold or cold to heat or vice versa. So, you need to avoid those.
Right.
If you are leaving your room, turn off your AC like half an hour before you leave out to the room. Same thing about your car.
Right. So there shouldn't be that difference of exposure,
No.
the quick one.
Yeah.
Okay, so in case, very quick answer, if somebody has been exposed to heat and he has started feeling unwell, what needs to be done right away if there is nobody around as well?
So, if he's, take himself to a shade quickly as possible. And if he has fainted and other people are around, bring him to the cool, put his legs a little bit higher, head down, because basically what's happening is, he has lost water and he's, going into hypovolemic shock also. So these are the simple thing, and if there is a cold water, use it. What we recommend, if you can take a shower
Right.
as quickly as possible.
Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar, Chief Executive Officer of the Global Health Strategists and Implementers, thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight. Mr. Talha Tufail, Bhatti, Environmental Scholar, heading Strengthening Regional Climate Resilience Program at the Institute of Regional Studies. Thank you very much for being with us on the show. And Mr. Munir Ahmad, climate change expert, always having you is great at the show. Thank you very much for your time, also for being with us tonight. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourself.